All right, so we got the chapter 200 spoilers, and this is expanding upon the previous chapter that was really exciting, and we're getting some answers to the questions that we had, but as usual, we're getting more questions as a result. But let's get into it. Yuji changed places with Kurusu on the sofa, pretending he was feeling off, and using exaggerated body language to convey to Megumi that he's the one housing Sukuna, the fallen angel. Megumi, as usual, has noticed Yuji being weird, so info is successfully conveyed. Okay, interesting. But before we get into it, let me just refresh you on what happened at the end of the previous chapter. So we saw Megumi and Yuji talking to Angel and, asking her various questions about how she can use her curse technique, which is capable of extinguishing or nullifying or negating other curse techniques. And we found out that she can't undo resurrections, but then they also asked her, can she remove the seal from the prison realm? And she said, yeah, I could probably do that. And that confirmed, okay, so she's able to do that, and that means that Gojo can now be freed from the back of the prison realm. But then she said, first I need your cooperation, then I'll remove the seal. There's one I especially want to butcher, the disgraced one. I promise that if we kill that player, I won't hesitate to help you. So the disgraced one here could also mean fallen one, fallen angel, I don't know, the verdict's still out, but just keep that in mind. But then suddenly Yuji's transported to Sukuna's domain, and he starts speaking to him, and Sukuna says, before you reveal anything, I should tell you something. I'm the disgraced one. So yeah, that was the huge cliffhanger. Like I said, raised so many questions, and this is the initial reaction to it here. Yuji trying to play cool, not directly saying out loud to Angel that hey, Sukuna's in me, he's the disgraced one, the fallen one, but trying to convey it to Megumi, who apparently is understanding what's going on here without anything being actually said. But Yuji says, I'll sacrifice myself. Half of Sukuna will be gone, and Gojo will come back. That's super cheap. And Megumi says, the problem right now is Itadori is willing to sacrifice himself. And Angel, the handmouth, says peculiar. So when Yuji says that he'll sacrifice himself and half of Sukuna will be gone, that's because, all of the fingers of Sukuna haven't been consumed yet. Which I guess more than half of Sukuna will be gone because there's not that many fingers left. And of course, as a result of this, per what Angel's deal was, Sukuna being butchered or just taken out, then she'll use her curse technique on the back of the prison realm and free Gojo. And then once Gojo's free, then, on paper, he could take care of everything here because seemingly no one can stand up to him. And we'll talk about that later because Gojo is mentioned again and it's pretty crazy. But of course, as we see here, Megumi doesn't want Yuji to die, so that's a big issue here. But Angel saying peculiar is peculiar in itself because I don't know if she's fully finding out here that Yuji is housing Sukuna, because if she is, you'd think that she'd have a different reaction to it, or maybe she's being understanding of it, oh hey, it's Yuji housing him and it's not necessarily Sukuna. And as for Yuji just being so willing to sacrifice himself here, maybe she's aware of that too, because we know that Yuji has been very upset with himself and how he's been used, since Shibuya arc. When Sukuna took him over and used his domain expansion to slaughter that portion of the city, which took out hundreds if not thousands of people, and also took off Inumaki's arm. So maybe Angel's aware of that and she's being understanding, trying to work with them possibly. Again, not really sure. I'm sure there's much more being said here and we'll just have to go into it on my review on Sunday. But also this is still not answering any more questions as to what's going on with Sukuna being the fallen one, the disgraced one. What does that mean exactly? I mean, hopefully a little more light is shed on it in this chapter. On the other side of the world, Kenjaku showing the White House peeps a recording of Gojo and the gang, conveniently framed as the bad guys, using cursed glasses, and he's spouting BS that only Japanese people can be sorcerers, so capture them. Okay, so this is a huge twist in development. I don't know if this literally means that Kenjaku is in the US right now or if this is a flashback, but that would be really interesting if everybody's been in the Culling game and doing all these huge battles and everything and eventually trying to work towards taking out Kenjaku, and he's just in America, trying to take over them as well or influence them to be taken over, because we know that Kenjaku has pretty much already taken over the Jujutsu higher-ups in Japan, but now he's trying to control America as well, or trying to convince them to do his bidding. And as for the whole thing about only Japanese people can be sorcerers, this was also kind of said at the end of Shibuya as well. Chapter 136, Tsukumo says that compared to Japan, extremely few Jujutsu sorcerers and cursed spirits appear overseas. Tengen's barrier is necessary for optimizing cursed energy. The only ones capable of becoming sorcerers through Tengen and optimizing cursed energy are the humans of this country. So that pretty much answers that. Tengen's barrier is essential to this. And I'll get more into that, but going further, Angel says there have been more people added to the colony. Kogani says 807 more people are there. So that's odd. I don't know if this is directly linking up with what's going on with Kenjaku in America, or this is just happening tangentially, but the 807 people here, I don't know if they're necessarily all like reincarnated sorcerers and civilians who've had their curse techniques awakened, like the two type of individuals that Kenjaku made deals with coming into the Culling game. That would be just way too much, right? So it's possible that these are just 807 like regular civilians that have been forced into the game somehow, and I think they've been added there for like a specific reason, maybe to be like obstacles for what's going to happen next, possibly. The chapter ends with the president asking, "Don't tell me you're asking me to use my power to abduct Japanese citizens to have sorcerers to use as research samples." And the preview is a fearsome scheme. The superpower country's choice is. So that's really interesting. And I don't know if Kenjaku wants them to abduct all the Japanese citizens, because, you know, he's saying previously that only Japanese people could be sorcerers, so capture them. Because also capturing all of them and taking them away would kind of defeat the purpose of the Culling game, because he wants them to be there so that the barrier will pass through them so that they can transcend to the other side and merge with Tengen's barrier. That's like the whole big part of Kenjaku's plan. So maybe he only wants to take some of them so that they can be used as research samples in America, because that's also another thing that Kenjaku wants. He wants to evolve individuals. So I guess that's a part of that as well. But I'm not really sure why he needs America to play a part in this. Also, speaking of that, apparently Gojo's power is explained in US people's terms. If turned into power, Gojo alone can supply electricity to a whole country. A scientist literally explained Gojo like this to the US president. So that's wild. Maybe this is going into how Kenjaku is going to convince them to make a deal with him, maybe. Like, hey, you abduct these citizens for me and allow me to use them as research samples, and I'll give you Gojo. And, you know, we can, I don't know, restrain him or something and hook him up like a car battery or something, and he could just power your whole freaking country. So you just have all this perpetual energy for free. And I don't know if that's necessarily what's going on here, but just the fact that it said that Gojo can power a whole country is freaking wild, because that means like that's how much cursed energy he has, you know, on top of what the Six Eyes is able to do and everything. And that's just so crazy, because like I would have expected Gojo to maybe be able to power a city or something, because that's in itself is still crazy impressive and pretty grand, but a whole country, like that's insane. Gojo is like way more powerful than what I even thought that he was. But yeah, that's all we can really go off of right now. But you know, like I said, there's so much more that is definitely being said in this chapter that is not being shown in these spoilers, and I cannot wait to read it. So please subscribe for my review on Sunday, because we're gonna go as much into this stuff as we possibly can then. But until then, let me know what you think about this stuff. What do you think Kenjaku needs the US for? What is Angel's plans for Yuji here? Let me know. And if you like the video, guys, please give it a like and please subscribe if you haven't already. Have a great day, and I'll see you in the next one.